For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Talk of the Town with Steve Bakken. Weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app. It's time for Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken, Jason Spies with the Crude Life, my co-host on Wednesdays, Wattage Wednesday. And one of the opportunities we had yesterday was to talk with Troy Coons, chairman of the Northwest Landowners Association. They've got a conference taking place today and tomorrow morning at the Old Ramcode at the Bismarck Motel. At the conference center there, and I thought it was important because Northwest landowners are in the middle of a lot of things right now, including some litigation that is at the North Dakota Supreme Court concerning Southern Carbon Solutions' proposed CO2 pipeline, the access to land. Thought it would be a great opportunity to talk with Troy once again and get the insight from the Northwest Landowners Association with their conference taking place today. Landowners Association, of course, there's been a lot of stuff in the news lately with the Northwest Landowners Association. I want to back up a little bit. For those that may not be familiar with your organization, give us a little background. What is the Northwest Landowners Association, and what's your mission?
Our mission is to inform and educate and facilitate people getting together from industry, if it's coal or oil or wind, or rare earth minerals, or whatever it may be, DOT, doing things on the property to bring them together, have the discussions, try to do things in harmony. And that was our mission. We started about 16 years ago, and we started with a wind farm issue, and oil was running big, and everything was going, and we happened to be the folks that were dealing with property rights, and it just kind of pushed us right to the forefront of things. And our mission was to be there to help people, bring people together in a group, a bigger voice. You know, it's hard to stand on your own. Doesn't matter if you're a single mom in Jamestown or a guy in Wofford City that has $8 million. You know, when you're up against something much larger, you need a group. You need that group thought. And so that's what we did. We come together. It's a group of volunteers that are on the board, and hundreds of members that pay $125 to be a member and help pay gas to get to meetings and try to help protect the Constitution and the citizens of North Dakota.
So basically it goes back to the grassroots of the core of what North Dakota is. Sit down, have a discussion, and solve problems. So you're a facilitator, but you're also an advocate, and not just for the landowners, the mineral right owners, but some of those industries and businesses that do great work here in North Dakota at the same time. So, again, more of a facilitator of those good conversations, because that's really where solutions come from.
Exactly. That's exactly what we believe in. We're not against any of the industries. Of course, there's bad actors on both sides, you know, and you always have that to deal with. But we are looking at advancing things and being there to help facilitate it, understand both parties and agency things. You know, we work with the agencies in the state, too. When DEQ has something happening, or the Industrial Commission, you know, we'll be there to work on that as well.
So it comes back to being good stewards of the land, whether you're a landowner, a farmer, a rancher, a producer, or your business that wants to utilize that land or from a landowner. It's about being good stewards. It's about the stewardship and making sure that we're protecting that land and being able to use it, develop it, but make sure that it always goes back to or is left better than it was found.
that's our core principles right there. That's what we're looking at, allow the next generation what my grandpa was afforded and I was afforded and my parents were afforded. For in my instance, my daughter is stepping into the operation, in her early 20s, and I want her to be afforded through her career to have that ability to deal with the land as I have.
So when you start looking at working with, as an advocacy group, there's more clout in a lot of voices. So as an advocacy group, you get legislators to pay attention, different businesses to pay attention when there's a bigger voice there. I want to go back a little bit and talk about what just took place at the last legislative session. There were 8 bills that were put forward for strengthening landowner rights in North Dakota, and they were all killed at the last minute. Do you guys have had anything to do with trying to promote some of those bills to protect the landowners or strengthen those rights here in North Dakota?
In the last legislative session, there was a lot of discussion on legislation to help with property rights. And, you go way back to the Kilo, New London case. There's been erosion of property rights happening across the nation. And, a few years back, there was Senate Bill 2344 that took away a right to have the access to a jury trial and change the definition of land, and some other things happened. We ended up getting pretty much into the situation where we ended up having to sue the state over that because we felt it was unconstitutional and we didn't see anybody else stepping forward. So we did that, one in district court, one in the Supreme Court, one in the reconsideration at the Supreme Court. So come back around the next session and more laws were passed. And then this past session, there was laws brought forward to inhibit property rights more, and there was legislation brought forward to help with the property rights issues. A lot of them dealt with eminent domain and the takings. And so, yes, we were heavily involved with that. We had a lot of allies. On most of it, we did not have enough allies. There's a lot of influence from other sides and lots of lobbyists there and lots of dollars. And so we were not successful on a number of them, but we did win on routing and the placement of wind towers and pipelines and how some of that authority gets handled through the PSC. So there was wins in different areas, but on those 8 that you were talking about, that was a struggle, real big struggle.
We're coming up against a break, but just fill us in a little bit where the Northwest Landowners Association is on Summit Carbon Solutions' proposed CO2 pipeline, because there was some litigation around that as well. A lot of landowners were sued by that company. And you guys aren't against pipeline. You've worked with oil and gas for a long time, but this is a little different. What's the impetus behind some of the lawsuits concerning the landowners? Well,
that's a lot of what you're seeing there is the Survey Access, an 1895 law. Basically was designed around a man and a mule to come across your land, survey to find your section lines and that type of thing. That is being used in a whole different fashion today for companies to come on your land, look for historical items, look for things like a certain type of a bat or a protected species. Some of them are drilling cores down to 4,000 feet to check out your land. Once they do that, they have the report. They file that report with the state, and they also file that with the feds, so that report is there about your land, and some of that can inhibit or change the future use of your land or how you have been using it.
We're talking with Troy Coons, the chairman of the Northwest Landowners Association. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about their conference and get in about land rights a little bit more as well, because this is a constitutional conference. We'll get the details on that coming up. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bach, and we're talking with Troy Coons, Chairman, Northwest Landowners Association. They've got a conference coming up this Wednesday and Thursday. We'll find out details on that coming up in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about the landowner rights side of stuff, because there seems to be an agenda globally and through this administration, most notably 30 by 30 land grab. There's a 50 by 50 land grab. Is there an affront to private property ownership taking place in this country? And we'll leave the global side out of it right now, but what are you seeing out there from not only North Dakota, but from a national agenda? Are you getting any glimpses of federal policy that is pushing back against private property rights?
For sure there is. You know, you see it. If I had the inclination, I could be traveling across this country, talking in different states all the time. I get lots of calls from Louisiana, Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, and more, where they're all struggling, you know, with the large corporations or our government coming at our founding principles, the Constitution, you know. And that's where this here conference come into play, just this egregious attack on our property rights, but yet that is one of the building blocks that built this nation. And so we're having to inform and educate, and I deal with companies that'll call from California that want to bring slurried radioactive waste to North Dakota and put it down in the pore space, or you got CO2 or salt water and many, many different things, and they want the process to be easier. When I talk to a lot of them, they would like it to have pretty much a land czar, you might call it, where they could go into an agency in the state, talk to one guy and say, I'm going from X to Y, and the property owner would get a letter in the mail saying this is what's coming across your property, you know, to make it streamlined, efficient, more cost-effective for them is kind of their argument all the time. You know, if they would move the property rights a little further up their schedule of events and doing a development instead of going through all the other processes and leaving us for the last 90 days or whatever and expect us to turn around, find attorneys, see if it makes sense for our property, our investments in our land and our strategic plan for our future. Does it make sense? That's a hard turnaround. You know, gotta work together better. You know,
well, and there tends,
yes, there is an assault.
There tends to be undue burden put on private property ownership, which have limited resources, especially the financial, having to find the legal. We're seeing right now with Summit Carbon Solutions' proposed CO2 pipeline. So your conference taking place Wednesday and Thursday at the Old Ramkota, the Bismarck Hotel now on South 3rd Street in Bismarck. It's an educational conference, basically a conference on the Constitution. What's the mission of this conference from an educational perspective?
Well, I've found a lot of times industry, state agencies, individuals, you know, are not as versed in it as you would hope they would be. And so it's time to get back to those building blocks. We have found ourselves working, as I said, a lot with the legislature, a lot with agencies, a lot with different companies, and now we find ourselves at the Supreme Court here a couple weeks ago. We were there a couple years ago. We're in district court now. It's a sad day, but it's the fact of what has to be done when our legislature on multiple fronts has broke the Constitution. So to protect our rights, we need to do that. So that's kind of our emphasis here, is to inform all sides. We want to see coal there. We want to see wind there. We want to see legislature there. We have 6.5 credits for CLE for judges and lawyers. And that gives you an idea at that level of credit what level of speakers we're bringing in here. And it's going to allow people access to this level of intellect and people that have done things nationally to be able to ask questions, because we're going to have speakers, and I can go through them if you would like. But also, a big part of it's going to be at the end of each day to have a open forum panel dialogue to allow everybody to ask these questions so they can all come to more of a level playing field in their knowledge base on what the Constitution means. And, principally the Fourth and Fifth Amendment deal with the property rights.
I know you have a great lineup of guest speakers, starting off with Mark Miller, former chief of staff to South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, and an attorney. And there's a lot on the legal side of stuff, of course, when you're dealing with the Constitution. But you've got guests like Mark all the way to Trent Luce, who's a big landowner advocate. So you touch on all the bases from an educational perspective. Phenomenal conference you put together Wednesday and Thursday in Bismarck. I also heard you were working on a local forum as well, possibly for Thursday.
Yeah, what we're doing is we had requests to insert some more folks from the local aspect, so we're still working on that. A few of the people with multitude of things happening in their life can't make it, others can make it, but we are going to integrate the two together. So we're going to have property owners, we're going to have county commissioners, all of that kind of thing, and developers, so we can take the large picture and bring some of it back home to a smaller region so you can see the effects it's having on people.
Great lineup. If somebody wants more information or to get registered for the conference, just a 2-day conference, day and a half, basically, Wednesday and Thursday, where do they go for information?
NW Landowners, or just put in Northwest Landowner Association. We pop up right away. You can go on Facebook. You can go on the website. You can look at the speakers. You can look at their bios. You can look at the agendas. You can go right there, fill out the pre-registration, and pay right there. So when you get there at the door, there'll be a tag ready for you that gets you right in.
Wednesday morning, registration opens at 8 a.m., 8:50 to 5 p.m. For the conference day one, 8:50 until 11 on Thursday as well. Like I said, great lineup of speakers. You got a full day and a half for a lot of great information from a landowner's perspective, from an industry perspective. Troy, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us on. I hope everybody will attend. It's just a great opportunity for people to get to this level of folks, all right in the state here.
Troy Coons, Northwest Landowners Association chairman. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. Conference taking place this morning, coming up at 10 o'clock. You still got time to get over there. Mark Miller, who is the former chief of staff to South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, an attorney with Pacific Legal Foundation, speaking at 10 o'clock this morning. Great lineup tomorrow as well. One of the things I'm really looking forward to, I'm going to get over there and check it out, is that local forum that's taking place. We'll get an update from the conference a little bit later on in the program with Lori Hintz from Beck News, Beck.News. This is Talk of the Town. Jason Spies, myself, when we come back on Super Talk 1270 on a Wattage Wednesday.
Talk of the Town.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Bakken, weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app. Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken along with Jason Spies from the Crude Life on a Wattage Wednesday. And Jason, great conference taking place, Northwest Landowners Association Conference on the Constitution taking place today and tomorrow. We'll get an update from Lori Hintz coming up next hour as she's doing a story for Beck News concerning the carbon sequestration and proposed CO2 pipeline from Summit Carbon Solutions. She'll be joining us next hour for a little update from the conference. A great lineup coming up at 10 o'clock this morning. Mark Miller, former chief of staff for Governor Kristi Noem down in South Dakota, who's a potential vice presidential running mate for Donald Trump. So we'll see how that plays out as well. But speaking of Donald Trump, did you catch some of the conversations or statements Trump made concerning our governor, Doug Burgum, and his support of Donald Trump? Did you catch any of that in the news, Jason?
No, I did not. I didn't. What did he say? I guess I saw.
Well, he was praising
Vivek Ramsworthy, where he brought him out on stage and had a great little back and
similar.
forth. And
yeah, very.
Did Governor Burgum did he introduce him and everything? Or?
Well, it was very similar to just giving him praise for his support because, of course, Governor Doug Burgum, after pulling out of the race for the Republican nomination, then threw his support last week to Donald Trump in supporting him. And now a lot of the national media is cueing in that could Governor Doug Burgum be bucking for a cabinet position, which I'm a little hard-pressed to think that's the route.
Oh, I think it's all business. I think it's a business move at the end of the day. I think that Governor Burgum is more concerned about the carbon pipeline than he is the people of North Dakota. I think Governor Burgum is more concerned about the carbon pipeline than he is about a cabinet position. I think Governor Burgum supports Donald Trump because he believes Donald Trump is going to allow the carbon pipeline after he's elected. Because when I take a look at the timeline of how these dominoes fell, you had the CEO of Carbon Summit Solutions. What's his name again? He's Ratzberger.
Yeah.
Or I get him mixed up with Cliff Clavin from Cheers, John Ratzenberger.
Kind of similar.
So anyway, he came out and supported Donald Trump and donated to his campaign. The next day, Governor Burgum came out in support of Donald Trump, and probably, I don't know, did he donate to his campaign? I'm not sure, because I'm sure he's donating his time in some way. But at any rate, so you have Carbon Summit Solutions in Iowa before the Iowa caucus coming in support publicly of Donald Trump. Then you had Vivek Ramsworthy drop out. So what ended up happening in the Iowa caucus was truly remarkable, because going into the Iowa caucus, the carbon pipeline was the number one issue for the people. And it totally got sideswiped. It totally didn't even come up. And the only person who was going to bring it up was Vivek Ramsworthy. And he basically, I don't know if he got bought off or bowed out, but at the same time, because his showing didn't do very much, the carbon pipeline voice didn't really go anywhere, because Nikki Haley is a globalist, so she doesn't want individuals to own land. Ron DeSantis, we're not really quite sure. It sounds like he's going to partner with Nikki Haley to try to take out Trump. So DeSantis is we're not sure where he lands. By the way, the state of Florida is banning the dictionary right now, just to give you an idea of where things are at in Florida. And, and so really when I take a look at, the carbon pipeline, I think Dustin Goverlow of the North Dakota Energy and North Dakota Watchdog Network, his early prediction was dead on, which is North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska and Minnesota are the testing ground for the billionaires to get the carbon subsidies. That's how important North Dakota is in this election. And, anyway, Steve, I'm processing in the moment here, because I didn't realize, the Trump and Burgum stuff was going on. I only knew about the Vivek in New Hampshire. By the way, I'm still a fan of Vivek. I really enjoy his approach.
Well, think of this though, because you got Michael Marazzo, the summit CEO who's putting different pieces into the campaign side of things. Now, Governor Doug Burgum, maybe he is bucking for a cabinet post. Is it is it energy? Is it natural resources?
Keep in mind, Burgum, but there's multiple things that can happen, but what's the lead horse, if you will? That's kind of really, I think, what kind of when you're looking for the root. But anyways, go ahead and continue. Sorry.
So if you're trying to get that agenda through, then is it from a cabinet position? I mean, there's a lot of power there. So if you're focused on, because we know Governor Doug Burgum is a globalist. He's not a Republican. He's a globalist. But if you're going to focus on one initiative and you're trying to get one avenue opened up and it fits into the globalist agenda, why wouldn't you go down that road? So if you can get that one agenda item taken care of, check that box, would you settle for a cabinet position if you're the narcissist Governor Doug Burgum?
I think it's about managing the business, what's best for their business. Take a look at this pipeline. Look at how much money they've spent trying to do advertising and marketing and propaganda just to get tax dollars. At the end of the day, the only reason all this is going on is because there's tax money to get at. So that needs to be talked about mostly. So, when you take a look at all of a sudden this new nonprofit pops up out of nowhere called Friends of Ag and Energy, and it's being positioned by two people who have never been a friend to ag and energy. They've profited off ag and energy, but they have not been a friend to ag and energy. And when you have Kathy Nessett, who's received more government subsidies than people even realize, stand up on stage and tell the taxpayers of North Dakota that they need to sacrifice so that a couple billionaires can make money off taxpayers and take people's land. I didn't realize Kathy Nessett was so far removed emotionally and spiritually from the people. That is a remarkable statement to make, that the North Dakota taxpayers need to sacrifice more for Harold Hamm. That is remarkable, Steve.
So
absolutely
Jason,
remarkable.
And I want to come back to the media stuff, and we'll do that after the top of the hour because we're coming up on a break. But when we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on again from that global, because it ties in perfectly with the conference of on the Constitution with Northwest landowners taking place today and tomorrow, and how there's an affront to land ownership. And that goes back to a little bit of a global agenda and what just took place in the World Economic Forum. And they're doubling down on quote-unquote climate change, which used to be called a whole bunch of other things because you just rename it if it doesn't fit your agenda. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270 on a Wattage Wednesday. I'm Steve Bakken along with Jason Spees from the Crude Life. You can catch Crude Life Sunday mornings right here on Super Talk 1270, 10 a.m. on Super Talk 1270. Also, I want to get in a little bit to ESG University and some of the stuff there as well. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken along with Jason Spees from the Crude Life. You can catch Crude Life Sunday mornings 10 a.m. right here at Super Talk 1270. Coming up at 10:30, we're going to check in with Sarah Stogner. Story we're following down in Texas in the Permian with saltwater disposal that kind of has gone awry and basically turned into a saltwater estuary, I guess, for lack of a better term, down in Texas. But what can happen with a blowout and improper supervision. So we'll get into that coming up next hour. Also, our private public picks also. Let you know, Jason, by the way, you and Sarah kind of tied for the playoff picks last week. So we'll get into that next hour. I want to talk about the media side of things coming up after the top of the hour. But in the meantime, bigger picture with the Northwest Landowners Association Conference of the Constitution concerning landowner rights here in Bismarck today and tomorrow. And if you follow what goes on globally, World Economic Forum is meeting this week, and some big news coming out of there yesterday because they just doubled down on climate change. Now, if you read the article in the New York Times that came out on Monday with all the storms, they're redefining. They're in the process right now, the New York Times, in the process of redefining climate change. Now, go back and look at what climate change is right now, besides just play for big dollars. But it used to be global cooling. We were all going to freeze to death. Then it was global warming. We're all going to roast to death. And then that didn't fit the narrative either because we're all going to drown because of the global warming. Well, let's just call it climate change. And now you've got the New York Times trying to redefine climate change. At the World Economic Forum over in Davos, they just doubled down on climate change agenda. And they're taking the climate out of it. It's about chasing the dollars now. Jason, repurposing a term for the sake of trying to fit a narrative or an agenda. I have said this forever. When things get politicized in that manner, we all lose. But we're seeing this unfold right before our very eyes right now.
You know, my Libra mind goes in so many different directions right now because we're shifting a culture and it's happening globally. And because of democracy, you can see where mobs of people can bully their way into creating new culture. And your definition, evolution of climate change, global warming, global cooling, that's a really good lesson for people to understand. And when we talk about environmental social governance, otherwise known as ESG, that's following the same template. Because originally it was called corporate responsibility reports, CSRs, corporate some sustainability reports. There's a DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion acronym. And so there's a lot of these different acronyms that are coming out. And what you're seeing, Steve, is you're seeing like a form of ESG becoming where politics is now taking over science through the environmental vein. You're now seeing politicians becoming the new source of morals and replacing the church. You're seeing on the governance and the transparency side really more of like an Orwellian type thing because the state is becoming the news. And so when, you know, the city of Fargo is the newsroom and they decide what information they can give you for the city, well, that's going to be kind of the new G, the new governance and the new transparency. So it's a very different world we're going into. And I think that it's very much the climate change, the global warming, the global cooling. It's the people that are in power that keep twisting the narrative so they can stay in power. And it's remarkable when you do not have a media to keep the state in check, the conversations that allow critical thinking do not happen. And what do they say, Steve? That a tyrant or somebody who can, you know, a fascist or whatever the case is, they want good, obedient citizens that do not challenge the status quo. So do not challenge climate change. Do not challenge global cooling. Do not challenge global warming, because that's what the state doesn't want. And when you go to the state for your values, which they're trying to do through your carbon footprint, we're going to go into a different place, Steve. We're going into a different place. And the media is really well needed for this. Really well needed for this. And I'm very excited for our conversation about how the media plays a role in this, because we're going to use Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, Steve, to talk about what a media plant is so that they can continue to spout misinformation. What do you think of that?
You know, I'm very intrigued to get into that because, using a sports analogy in playing it into how everything else is playing out in the media, I think is very valuable because you take bias away at that point. One of the things when I'm looking at what's going on with Davos and the World Economic Forum and this politicization of agendas and climate change, they're doubling down on climate change. One example, so our climate czar, right? Former presidential candidate.
John Kerry.
Yes. So, John Kerry doesn't have power of attorney on his own affairs anymore. His wife does. So, as he's expounding all this climate change and you need to go cold and not use fossil fuels and get rid of coal and get rid of gas and oil, yet he's in the process of speaking in Davos. And I watched a reporter ask him about this, and did he get fidgety. He's in Davos for the World Economic Forum, expounding his climate change agenda. And then during the conference has to fly back home to the United States on his private jet because he can't sign things. And he has to have his power of attorney sign off on things. And then he's flying back to Davos.
Right.
You can't make this up.
So
you talk about a club, the billionaire club, the club of do as what we say, not as we do, the agenda that's being pushed behind that. You talk about how that plays out into a globalist agenda.
So, okay, let's talk about the leadership behind that. Okay, let's talk about that because
20 seconds, by the way, 20 seconds, so make it quick and we can finish this over the top of the break.
Let's take it over the top of the break because basically, we live in a world where a telecommunication presence could have been done. But instead, the climate czar decided to fly back and forth, waste taxpayer money, contribute to the footprint, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's talk about the leadership after the break. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union Studio. Now you can listen to Super Talk 1270 on Alexa.
Hiya.
Find out how at supertalk1270.com.
Goodbye.
Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bike along with Jason Spees from the Crude Life, Sarah Stogner, the Unicorn Lawyer, joining us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to get into our private public picks, but we're getting down to the game, so we don't have to leave that big of a segment for that. So we can cover a lot of ground with Sarah. Jason Spees and I talking about the media now and what that means from a national and global perspective. Like I said, article in the New York Times, are redefining climate change at the moment. World Economic Fund over in Davos, doubling down on climate change agenda, because of the power, the control, the money that goes along with this. You brought up an interesting point about leadership coming, into play here. And, I look at it is with what's going on with the media, and you take a look at the mainstream media, it's kind of been a useful idiot. You've got an agenda that has been controlling the media, and the media doesn't understand that at a certain point, when you lose credibility, when you lose your usefulness, you're going to get brushed aside. Because as you pointed out, the government's becoming media. The government news source is becoming the government reporter. And you take a look around countries around the globe that media news source, well, it's a government agency. I don't think we're that far away from having that opportunity or that possibility happening here. And that scares the hell out of me. You take a look at what's going on with just Summit Carbon Solutions, Jason, and what the media buys that they're doing to push that carbon sequestration agenda. A great example, a statewide editorial, Ron Ness from the Petroleum Council, who's considered in a leadership role when it comes to oil and gas, has been promoting the sequestration side of things, had an editorial come out in the paper. Did you have an opportunity to read that, Jason?
I skimmed some bullet points, yes.
Okay, well, I just even from skimming it, I want your take because you've been published, you've received awards, you're a newspaper guy at your core, you've been doing the crude life for over a decade. You're well-written, well-received, well-recognized in a lot of different media circles. So your take on what that editorial was?
Well, I just skimmed it because I thought it was very offensive and full of inaccuracies. You know, it was very opinionated. Ron Ness does a very good job of being a lobbyist. He has become one of the most powerful people in the state of North Dakota, and he's a lobbyist. And, you know, the fact that he wrote this editorial and it's not been questioned by anybody is remarkable, because just from a sterile point of view, just a real sterile point of view, and I get it, because if you question somebody like Ron Ness, you will be attacked. There's a tribal mentality that if you disagree with anything, you know, then you're not a part of them, so they don't support you or whatever the case is. And they'll dismiss you and call you crazy or say this. And, you know, like they did to Dave Chappelle and like they did to Cat Williams and other people like that. And I'm not comparing myself to them in any way, but I have been on the receiving end of some pretty harsh behavior, treatment, and discrimination from Ron Ness and the Petroleum Council and the state of North Dakota. So I do know what I'm talking about, okay? And so when I take a look at the oil and gas industry in North Dakota, and oil companies have made record profits, but we have a workforce shortage to where the governor signed an executive order. We have a nursing shortage. We have a teacher shortage, and we have record oil and gas profits, which means the state of North Dakota should have record oil and gas profits too, which 50 to 70% of the state's budget is tied to the oil and gas industry. So why is there so many workforce issues happening? Why is there so much state money being pumped into workforce issues? Why is oil companies making record profits and we have all these workforce issues? Furthermore, we're using tax money to bring in immigrants so that they can work for oil companies for less money. So we have people that have invested their family and livelihood into the industry getting replaced, getting ghosted, getting zeroed out by legal immigrants. And so the state of North Dakota is helping facilitate that too, Steve. So when I read that the oil and gas industry helps everyone in North Dakota, I can tell you it hasn't helped me. But I've given a lot back to the industry. I can name over a dozen examples where the state and the Petroleum Council used the crude life to help them profit. We've got emails and everything, so we haven't gotten anything really from the industry. So we find that article extremely offensive. Now, when we take a look at the workforce shortages from a news point of view. Outside of this program discussing this right now, where's Joel Heitkamp been? Where's Scott Hennon been? Where's Jessica Bell's husband, the new host that's being given an unbelievable entitlement? Jessica Bell's husband has got a special interest involved with carbon sequestration and the coal industry. So he's been ushered to the front to be a voice for the media. Zero credibility, zero experience. But I'll tell you what, Ron Ness promoted that he was going to be on the show. He's been invited to be on this show a lot of times. He wanted to come on with legal immigration. We had no problem. He could come on. He was on a year ago, Steve, talking about how the industry gives back and everything else. So how much money has he given this program? I can tell you he's given the crude life $0. So I find that article really offensive personally, and I could name at least a dozen examples on how the oil and gas industry is doing really well, but the state's not. So it doesn't add up, Steve. I'm sorry if that was a little bit offensive to you, but, and I didn't mean to speak on your behalf, but I wasn't prepared for this question. So
okay, so I want to come back a little bit to the media stuff, because where I see the media going is, and we saw this for a long time in oil and gas industries, because they were looking at, they're picking on coal, so they're leaving us alone, so we're going to continue to operate. And they didn't understand that you're next mentality. And we're seeing that in the media right now. Media's next. They were a useful idiot. They were a tool for a political agenda, and they're going to become irrelevant, because you brought up a great point. When you lose credibility, it's the credibility. So what's going on over at another station in town, statewide audience, like you mentioned, with a plant in the media, that's a 2-hour infomercial. There should be a disclaimer that runs with that this is an infomercial. That's what we're doing here. This is an infomercial. We're promoting agenda. We're paying to promote a marketing piece, an advertising piece. You hear it on the weekend programs where there will be a wealth management company that buys an hour or two of time. That is a paid commercial. It's an infomercial. But you and I were talking a little bit off air about plants in media. There's a lot of those out there.
Mm-hmm. No, sure. Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, he's a plant. Sean Hannity, he's a plant. Tucker Carlson was a plant for a while until he left because he didn't want to be a plant anymore. And maybe he's a new plant, I guess. But as far as I'm concerned, he hasn't done anything that would be extremely one-sided. So, when you take a look at, Billy Blanks or Ron Popeil, that's an entertainment type of a plant. But they're there to pitch one point of view, that this Showtime grill is going to beat every appliance you have. And how's that any different than what, Scott Hennon tries to do? Scott Hennon gets paid by somebody to go into a market, divide, polarize, so they can continue to get government money to solve problems. Keep in mind, Summit Carbon Solutions, every single time they take out a billboard, every time that they decide that they're going to go sponsor something, they're doing it because they have tax dollars being guaranteed. So if a company can afford to spend that much money on marketing, why do they need help from the taxpayers? Why does my son have to be told he might have to work 2 jobs if he wants to go to college next year? Because he's already taking college classes right now, and he's working a full-time job, and his taxes are going to Summit Carbon Solutions. In some roundabout sort of way they are. So why should my son and me, a single parent, continue to pay these types of taxes and have inflation happen so that Ron Ness, Pat Finken, Ron Rauschenberger can continue to try to control the media and destroy families? I don't think it makes any sense to me, Steve, at all.
again, coming back to the media side of this, Jason,
but let's go a step further, because not only 6 months ago we had a couple landowners.
Okay,
on.
but my question is, define a plant, because
okay, Stephen A. Smith,
right? But the point is, being able to identify some of these plants is getting awfully difficult.
Well, it's very difficult when you have a PR machine behind you. Okay, so Stephen A. Smith, we'll just use him, okay, from ESPN. He's there to polarize. He's there to divide. He's not there to have intelligent conversations. He's not there to try to have critical thinking. He's there to try to present himself like he's an expert when he's not. Okay, he's not. There's a reason that you and I try to bring experts on, because we don't want to bring on people who are a plant, who are there just to promote a special interest. That doesn't do the people any good. The media is supposed to be the eyes and the ears for people in this busy, busy world. That's the reason why you had a separation of church and state. It's the reason why you had a separation of media and state. Because spiritually, you wanted to be separated from your government. Your eyes and ears with the media wanted to be separated from your government. So that way your government was always held accountable, so they weren't working behind the scenes deals like you're seeing today. Okay? That's why people want more transparency, Steve. That's why they want these types of things. So, I'm sorry, I kind of got taken off base a little bit, but Stephen A. Smith, just go ahead and watch his before and after analysis of the Cowboys-Packers game. The language he uses is extremely aggressive. Plants will often use aggressive language because it's easier to agree than disagree. And so when you agree that the Cowboys are going to roll over the Packers have no reason to show up, what are the Packers even doing in the playoffs? And then after the game's done, to come back and say, Mike McCarthy should be fired. Dak Prescott, you do not. 4 interceptions. These people have no soul. These people have no empathy. And that's why I was so surprised when Kathy Nessett stood up on a podium and on Beck TV asked my son and taxpayers to sacrifice more for her and Harold Hamm to make more money. That is soulless, Steve. So a plant really doesn't have a lot of soul, because most people want to be kind of credible. They don't want to lie. They don't want to, just be somebody that accepts money and says whatever. They want to actually be taken seriously. And so nobody takes Stephen A. Smith very serious anymore. But because he's so bombastic and he's so polarizing, and the leadership behind him support him, remember, because Kathy Nessett has never been a friend of ag, and now all of a sudden she is. John Kerry has never been an expert in climate. All of a sudden he's the climate czar. So if you have money to market, you're doing very good. It's like the city of Fargo. It's like the Department of Commerce. You're not news. You're not news.
But the mainstream, it's about muddying the waters, and then the mainstream media doesn't realize that at a certain point they're going to become irrelevant, and you're out of the picture.
See, what I'm saying is that when the city of Fargo and the Department of Commerce call themselves news, they're actually doing a psychological operation on the people. And the people shouldn't allow it. There should be somebody. In fact, I'll even go a step further. Team North Dakota. There should be people in the media that are challenging the use of Team North Dakota. Go look up in the dictionary what a team is. Okay? So, Doug Burgum, you're the one who ushered in Team North Dakota. I ask you, who are you playing against? Are you playing against people? Because a team is competitive. You are a government agency. You are supposed to help people, not play a game, not compete against them. That is soulless. Steve.
Especially when
soulless behavior.
Especially when the team you're playing against is in your own state and
that's what I'm saying.
And
so
pushing your own agenda.
Let's say you're a landowner and you're trying to get help from the state, like 2 counties are asking for investigations against a company using eminent domain, trying to use eminent domain. Okay, what team is Team North Dakota playing on? The out-of-state company or the landowner company? Because join Team North Dakota, Steve. And I get it. I'm being,
good.
I'm being picky. It's the editor in me, right? It's the media training in me from North Dakota State. That's another thing. My degree from North Dakota State is worthless in the state now because the old way of media no longer exists.
All right, Jason, we're up against a break, and we'll come back. We got an update from Lori. Speaking of the landowners and Northwest Landowners Conference coming up today and tomorrow, we'll get an update from there with Lori Hintz from Beck News. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Andy.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken. Joining us in the program, Lori Hintz from Beck News. You can go to beck.news. Of course, we usually talk to Lori every Monday morning concerning Summit Carbon Solutions' proposed CO2 pipeline, but we're going to talk to her during the week because there's a little conference going on, the Northwest Landowners Conference taking place. It's a conference on the Constitution at the Ramkota Wednesday and Thursday morning, and a lot of great speakers. Lori, you're there for Beck News putting together a story. I want to get a little snippet of your take on the lineup, the guests, the speakers. I mean, this is a big deal when you start talking about landowner rights in North Dakota.
It is. Well, the really cool thing about this conference is the fact that you have got the Northwest landowners, the people from North Dakota who actually started this long time ago, just decided that they were going to be active and they were going to support their landowner rights in a very tangible way, and so they are putting this on. So that is kudos to them for realizing, okay, we need to do some education and help people learn about that. CLEs are even offered on this, which is really, really cool too, so you can get some credit for it. It is really a well-planned event because they have speakers on so many different topics, and it is throughout the day. It is also going to include a panel of experts who are also going to be able to talk to various items. Amalgamation, what a crazy word. I mean, it's basically a made-up word, but it is something that so few people know about. And if you've ever wondered if when people start talking about pore space and you have no idea what they're talking about, this is a really good opportunity for the general public to just get some really good information from the experts who know the most about it.
So over the 2 days, great lineup of speakers as well. Trent Luce, you might see him on Beck TV as well. He'll be there talking about some landowner rights stuff. Troy Coons, the chairman of the Northwest Landowners Association, he's kind of spearheading all this. We talked to him this week as well. But the lineup, and whether it's the legal side of things or the advocacy or the constitutional, I mean, one of the big names that pops out to me, Mark Miller. He's going to be there speaking Fourth Amendment search and seizure issues for landowners. Now, if you're not familiar with Mark Miller, former chief of staff to South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, also an attorney with Pacific Legal Foundation. This conference brings a little bit of everything for everybody. And one of the things that the Northwest Landowners Association really focuses on is they're an advocacy group to make sure that we're good stewards of the land. Whether you're an industry or you're a private landowner, they act as that conduit for resolution. That's really what they function as.
Yeah, it is. This is a wonderful, wonderful group. I have been very, very impressed also with Derek Broughton, who's their counsel, and he is just an absolutely constitutional rock star for the state of North Dakota, bringing suit on the state level to the North Dakota Supreme Court on behalf of the North Dakota Landowners Association. And, just the thing that makes me the most happy about this conference is the fact that they're going to be talking about Fifth Amendment issues. And when people start learning and realizing their own rights, it's a beautiful thing. It's just a lovely thing to realize, okay, people are learning what they are actually entitled to by God. Your rights are given by God. And, we say the pursuit of happiness is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we say, property is happiness. Land ownership is a big deal. And it's helpful to know, who is actually sovereign in this case. And the Constitution tells us that.
So as far as your takeaway and putting together a story for Beck News, what are you gleaning out of this conference? Because there's so much going on right now, whether it's the Summit Carbon Solutions proposed CO2 pipeline, how that affects landowners, the 8 bills that failed at the legislative level last session that gave more protections and more rights to private property owners. There's a lot of different ways to take this. What is your take for putting a story together for Beck News?
Well, I am hopeful to be able to see legislators there. I am hopeful to see landowners there and people educating themselves with regard to the Constitution. I think it is valuable for people to learn about what their rights are, and so I'm hopeful that it has an effect actually on the next legislative session. It's just very well made that people realize, hey, wait a minute, I had forgotten that. I had learned that in school a long time ago. I had forgotten what my rights are. So I'm going to focus on the interesting aspects of the speakers. I'm going to try to put together an informative, informational story, a little package for people to be able to see and see in a nutshell what happened at the North Dakota Landowners Constitution Conference. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Kudos to the folks at North Dakota Landowners for putting it together. Very timely.
Well, I want to thank Beck News and Beck Communications for having the pulse on this and really digging into the landowner's perspective, and for all that you do with making sure that the information gets out there from a media perspective. Stories that some strange reasons seem to be sequestered in mainstream media these days. But Lori, thank you very much for what you do.
Happy to do it. It is our pleasure at Beck. It is our purpose to serve the public, and that's what we take seriously every day. Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you, Lori Hintz over at Beck News. You can go to beck.news. Look for a story coming up soon. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
News Talk.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
For Bismarck Mandan, Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy, just get in line, it moves fast. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Boggan along with Jason Spiess from the Crude Life. Also joining us, the unicorn lawyer Sarah Stogner from down in Texas, down in the Permian. Good morning, folks. How you doing? Now, you were on and got to listen a little bit about Lori, what she had to say, Sarah, and you found some of her comments rather intriguing.
Yeah, I said I got to meet this woman. It sounds like you guys are having some of the same types of issues, obviously, and the same associations of landowners and different interested parties of how we're going to be dealing with some of these issues.
I got a question for you, Sarah, because we're going to get into some of the issues that you're dealing with. At the end of the day, is this really a landowner issue? I mean, is it the landowners that are asking for help? Is that what's happening here? Or what? Because I see the landowner issue as being the root of so many things.
Yeah, I mean, the landowners are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on this, right? So with the issues that we're dealing with down here right now with orphaned wells, for example, you've got landowners who a lot of the times don't own the minerals, even though people think, oh, these guys are just greedy and they've gotten rich on the oil and gas and now they're wanting to complain. It's like, no, a lot of these landowners have never had an interest in the oil and gas. They are just the surface owners. And they've had to choose between, okay, do I go? I don't want to be in the press, right? Like, not everyone wants to be like us and have their name out there and be recognizable. And I understand that. People just want to live their lives. So I've got an agreement with a lot of landowners where they say, hey, feel free to come on, film, blast them. Just don't mention me by name, right? Like, I don't need to be involved. But at some point, that luxury isn't going to be available as an option anymore. We're going to need people to file suit against the state and say, hey, you guys are doing this wrong, and things like that. And we're going to need lawyers who have motivations other than billable hours, because there's not a sexy attorney's fee provision way to do this, a lot of this stuff, right? So it's going to take all stakeholders, but I think large landowners are really leading the way.
Well, and our Northwest Landowners Association, that's the impetus of this conference they're having today and tomorrow. It's a conference on the Constitution. So it's the constitutional background of land ownership. And that's going to get more and more important all the time. So, tell you what, we're up against a break right now. When we come back, I want to get into what's going on with the latest on the saltwater disposal. And Sarah might become a felon here sometime very soon. We'll get the details on that and what's going on down in Texas with that basically saltwater estuary, I guess is probably a good thing to call it. This is Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Jason Spiess from the Crude Life. You can catch Crude Life Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken along with Jason Spiess from the Crude Life. Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270. We're talking with Sarah Stogner, the unicorn lawyer down in Texas, down in the Permian. And basically the saltwater estuary from a blowout leaking, the spongy soil that's been created from some bad practices, kind of a media blackout on that. Sarah Stogner has been following that because I think it's very important, especially tying in with what we've been talking about this morning from a landowner's perspective and a landowner's rights perspective. And Sarah, you've got some news. You're about to break the law. Did I hear you right when we were talking during the break?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to call it conscientiously objecting.
Oh, there we go.
To the no-fly zone, right? So I've been taking my drone and coming in from about half a mile away at 400 feet and surveilling and getting, hopefully daily is my goal, daily documentation of what's happening at the site. And that way, later on, when we're fighting about what happened, I mean, they did this last time. They did this in January of 2022, and that big geyser about 400 yards away from the current blowout sprang up, and I obeyed the do not fly. And it took them over a year to get control of that site. And I don't have evidence now of the extent of damage and what happened, and to be able to piece together the puzzle pieces. And so this is important. And it's worth me potentially losing my pilot's license and or them trying to get a misdemeanor against me under Texas law.
So what we're talking about here is the Texas Railroad Commission has issued a no-fly zone over one of the oil and gas orphan wells. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, well, technically the Railroad Commission requested from the FAA a no-fly zone, and the FAA granted it based on the Railroad Commission's representation that it was that they needed it.
So, who did the landowner give you permission to do what you're doing, or are you doing it without the landowner's permission?
So the landowner there is totally fine with me documenting. And he just doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be in the press, right?
No, and that's cool, and everything along those lines. I'm just wondering, at what point does the landowners stop owning the air? Because what we're talking about here is very interesting. I'm looking at it from a media point of view, to where, as an independent journalist, I've been a business owner all but 3 years of my life. Okay. And so I had to go and do some boots on the ground journalism to get my start. And we would have police show up because people would call the cops on us. And so we would have to make sure that we were on public property, or we had to make sure that the person who owned the property gave us permission to be on there. And so that's where my mind is coming from, Sarah, from more of that kind of, land ownership and property rights, also even the Constitution to a certain degree, because we even had to pull that out, First Amendment and all these other things. What's the argument, I guess, to prevent you from doing this? Is there, where does the FAA decide they have total control ownership of the air, I guess?
Yeah, look, as a pilot, I greatly respect the FAA and what they do to protect us, to make sure that we don't have problems in the air, right? It is literally one of the safest things that we do is flying, and it's a whole lot safer than driving around in a car, right? So I don't want to poo-poo on them at all. I think they rely on the Railroad Commission to be intellectually honest when seeking something. And so originally the Railroad Commission said, hey, we've got this dangerous gas leak. We need a no-fly zone. So the FAA granted it for, I think it was like a week and a half. And then that first one expired, and then they got another one that went through January 8th. And they said, well, it's not a gas leak, but a drone would be distracting to people. Fall on someone, I guess. I don't know what the argument is.
Basically, the argument is we said so. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, like at an LSU game, right? You don't want...
Oops, Sarah, you're breaking up.
They're drones and airplanes. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now. Well, yeah, but like at big public events, then they're scheduled. If somebody's got a drone up or private plane, and you got a military flyover, there's a problem. So you can't interfere with the event. You can't interfere with the event. But that isn't the case here. They just don't want documentation.
They just don't want Sarah Stogner. This is like the Sarah Stogner no-fly zone. I'm the only one flying.
Fair enough. Well, we look forward to, if you need bail money, call Jason or me. So more than happy to help you out there. Time to go.
I do have y'all's cell.
So who gets the first phone call? You get one phone call. Is it Jason or is it myself?
No, I think I'm going to call you, Steve.
Okay.
I need a public official.
Yep.
All right.
Girl.
Well, and that brings us to our private public picks. Jason, you and Sarah tied 4-2 on the playoffs last week. I was 3-3. I had a little more faith in the Philadelphia Eagles than I probably should have, and I should have got on the Baker Mayfield train. But going to be a good week for playoff football. Weather was an impactful event last week in a couple of the games as well. So let's get right into the picks. Houston Texans at the Baltimore Ravens. Sarah.
Ooh, this one's tough. I'm going to go with who I want to win, not necessarily who I think to win. So I'm going to pick the Texans.
I got to go with the Houston Texans as well, Steve, because I'm all mad at myself because 4 weeks ago I said I'm riding the Texans train, and I jumped off for the Flacco flamboyancy. Dang it. So
Well,
I'm going with the Texans.
Proved you wrong. I'm going with Baltimore on that one. Green Bay at San Francisco.
Green Bay against Dallas made Dallas look embarrassed. So I'm going to hope that they go further. So I'm going to pick Green Bay.
Jason?
I'm going to go with Joe Montana over Brett Favre.
I'm going San Francisco also. Tampa Bay, are you going to stay on the bandwagon as they travel to Detroit?
No, I'm going Lions.
Jason?
Baker Mayfield, baby. We're going to Tampa Bay.
I'm going to go Detroit on this. I got a feeling that, remember, they're old NFC North rivals from back in the day. I'm going Detroit, though. And the final one, Kansas City at the Buffalo Bills.
Is there going to be another blizzard? Are they going to have to recruit more Bills fans to scoop snow?
It's Buffalo. There's always a blizzard.
Yeah, I'm going Buffalo.
Jason?
Buffalo.
I'm going Buffalo as well. And those are our private
by the
public
way,
picks.
with the post game that Taylor Swift dumps Travis Kelce when he loses in the playoffs.
Oh, that's like you picking a tie. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union Studio.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.